My people, what's going on? This is your boy Monroe, and you are now tuning into the Naked Experience with Monroe. Welcome back. We are in episode 2 of the 2021 season, and I am so excited to be here for part 2 of our conversation that we started last week, the goal getters conversation. The goal getters, what is the real reason behind our goal setting, right? We talked about intentionality, and we're going to continue that conversation. Of course, we have the wonderful guest that we started with last week, Miss Suzy Fauria, and I'm so happy that she's back, and you are in store for a treat in this conversation. Now, last week, we had some robust interaction with our viewing audience, so I want that same energy this week. If this is your first time, let us know in the comments. Let us know if this is not your first time, and whatever time it is, I'm so grateful that you have decided to show up and you are going to be in for a treat. Now, as always, I'm going to ask that you please like, share, and subscribe. I was looking at our YouTube channel subscribers. We're rising one subscriber at a time, y'all, and I'm grateful for all 163 of you all. Now, I know we can get that to 1,000 not too long from here. So I believe in you to get the word out there about the Naked Truth Experience. Also, make sure that you jump into our Facebook group, the Naked Truth Experience with Monroe Facebook group. Again, I told you last week that I needed to do a better job of engagement in there, and that is something that I'm still working on. So your boy's being very honest. I want to thank my producer Julius for being with me tonight as always, and we are looking forward to another great show. Let's see, Ken Austin Jr. Hey everyone, hey Monroe and Julius, ready for a good show. I am. Ken, I thank you, brother, because you are definitely here. Y'all, that is the love of my life, my partner there, Quentin Lampkin. New year, new season, ready for tonight's show. So I'm so glad for the support. All right. So last week, let's dive right into it. Last week, we really brought up some things around intentionality and understanding why we may make some of the decisions we do about what success looks like and how we want to go about achieving it. And so Suzy brought to us a lot of things that we should inquire about when we are getting ready to set goals or set some intentions. And one of those things is to consider, how does the role of insecurity play in our decision making when it comes to setting our goals? And then also, what needs are being met by achieving these goals? And some of these needs are not articulated. We might not be able to actually recognize them, but we feel them. And there are these goals that come out of that. Now, again, I will say setting goals is not a bad thing. That's not what this is about. But we want to be more intentional and honest in our goal setting. And then I also brought up, and I might have done this in my talk back, I'm going to put a plug here too. Every Friday at 11 a.m. Eastern, I go live on IG for our 10-minute talk back. We had a great session last Friday following this show, and we're going to have another great one tomorrow. But I also brought up this piece on really making sure that the metrics for our success are based in something that is not external. And we talked about a lot of the external projection of those insecurities onto things. So making sure that our goals and our targets aren't based on someone else's whim or the fickle nature of people and society, right? I use the example of maybe not having a goal of wanting to be liked by everybody, but instead having a goal of having more deep, meaningful relationships. Tonight, the conversation is going to take a little bit of a turn as we continue to interrogate our intentions behind our goals. And we're going to start with this clip where Suzy and I brought up capitalism and racism. So, and white supremacy. So I want you to see how we make that connection. So let's go ahead and dip into that interview. When you and I were talking about preparing for this interview, you said, "Oh, yeah, I got something to say." When it comes to when I asked that central question on what's our intention, what are our motivations when we're making these goals and these resolutions, and something that's very valid and present from things that happened just recently in the Capitol, right? So, talk to me a little bit about because you do a lot of anti-racist work, and
Mhm.
so how does this relate? How does this relate?
Right. Okay. So the way I think our conversation is a little different because we're talking about these unfulfilled needs, and you clearly have a lot of awareness about your needs and intentions and insecurities. But I think for most people, that level of awareness doesn't exist. And so I think a lot of their needs or their, let's say, just their goals, particularly at the beginning of the new year, is likely rooted in some external thing, right? Changing their body, acquiring more money, getting the car, doing the thing, right? And so I like really actively push back against that because it's so deeply rooted in capitalism. And as we know, capitalism and white supremacy are intertwined. They can't really be teased out from each other. And so I try to resist the urge to externalize my goals and intentions if they are related to some form of capitalism. Because I think that those, when we do that, it doesn't feel sustainable, at least for me, right? Because capitalism is always shifting and the latest trend or brand or whatever is always shifting because that's the nature of capitalism. We have to then shift with it. But if we are good and solid in ourselves and we don't need these external things and we don't need to put money out to have them and acquire them, then I think that's where we're like, we can find our stability and really push against capitalism in a lot of important ways.
So I can imagine that I may have a viewer out there who's saying, so wait, you're saying I can't aspire to have that new house? I can't aspire to drive this car that I want, that I've worked
Mhm.
hard for, or maybe even that promotion on the job, which will give me the resources to be able to buy some of these things.
Mhm.
How would you respond to that person that's going to push back to you and say, like, why can't I set that goal and have those things?
Right,
How would you
right.
respond?
And I look, and I don't think there's anything wrong with having those things, right? But I think that we do need to be curious about why we want them.
Mm,
What
mm,
messages have we received about having them? What does it look like to be a happy American, right? Does it mean that you have the fancy car and the big house and the family and
wow.
all these things, right? Not really. To me, being a happy American or a happy person means that we love ourselves. We have like generally positive thoughts,
Yeah.
right? We like give love freely, but those messages are not embedded in capitalism.
Yeah.
So I just think it's so important, right? Like, go ahead and save your money for the car, but is that car going to lead you to happiness? And if it
Wow.
leads you to happiness for one day, is that happiness sustained happiness? When you still have that car in 10 years, are you still going to be like, I got my car, I made my goal? No, right? You're gonna be like,
Probably not. You'll
probably
be
not.
like, "Where's the next one?" I know for
Right.
me,
And
right?
that's,
For me,
and
you
that,
talk about vehicles, that was one of the things, like, nothing was ever good enough, right? I would
mhm,
set this goal for, this type of vehicle, and then once I got this type of vehicle, I was like, my head was already turning. It was already on swivel for like, "Ooh, if I could get this, that means I could probably get this." And if I could get, I mean, time and time again, there was a lot of Julius is going to get me because I keep touching my face. But time and time again, that is going to stay in the show. Time and time again, I saw myself always trying to one up myself,
mhm,
setting these markers, these benchmarks, and getting there and not having contentment, not being content. And so I definitely, again, once again, I can really relate to what you're saying about the importance of that inquiry, understanding the why. What is the why?
mhm,
And for wanting those things and not saying that it's bad to have these things, right? Enjoy them, enjoy life. It's great. But I have found prioritizing experiences, prioritizing, deep, meaningful interactions over these things is what has brought me contentment. So
mhm,
when we're thinking about how do we, and I told you in the beginning, I stopped doing resolutions or kind of formalized goals and more so intentions on what I wanted something to feel like. What
mhm,
experience did I want to have in my life? And when I put my energy into that, it allowed me to be present in the process, and that unfolded so much beauty, or has unfolded so much beauty in my life, that now when I do achieve certain successes, the contentment level is off the meter. And you also talk about this a sustainability. There's a foundation there that I have found now, that really keeps me there. And so yeah, thank you for that, Susie. I want to move to this piece on, going into the wellness dialogues. You put some prompts up for 2021. And if we've got people out there that are saying, okay, well, how do I be more intentional or meaningful around what I put out into the universe going forward? You asked this question, one of your questions, and I love this. How will you honor your inner child's need?
Mm.
How will you honor your inner child's needs? Talk to me a little bit about that. Why would that be a prompt that would probably be a good place for a lot of us to start when it comes to resolutions or goals for the new year?
Well, if I had it my way, I would have everyone look at their inner child and be like, fuck the car. You don't need no money. Like, what does your inner child need?
Yeah, yeah,
That would be my
yes,
way of
yeah,
I don't know, leading this world, but
yeah.
clearly not going to happen. No, really though, I think that I wrote that question because our inner child is alive and present and really is in the driver's seat more than we know, right?
Mm,
Even when you said that you had this intention to be seen,
yeah,
right? Was that 40-year-old Monroe who needed to be seen, or is that
yeah,
like
right.
Monroe who kind of transitions who needed to be seen,
Wow.
right? And so like if we can look at the younger parts of us that are likely still hurt and wounded and are acting out in ways to be seen, if we can like have a little conversation with them and get to know them a little bit better, and we can start to fulfill those needs, then we can show up in our adult lives as full actualized people, right? Instead of like looking all the time for these needs that we don't even know exist.
Wow. Yeah, I really love this conversation. There was a couple of things that I want to pull out before we go into some comments from the audience, but I want you to contemplate, what does it mean to be happy? What does it really mean to be happy? And I don't think that is a question that we really sit with and spend time with. And one of the things that I've taken that a little bit further is I say, what does it feel like? What does it feel like? There was a couple of years ago when I was getting ready to finish graduate school, and I knew I wanted to make a change in regards to what I was doing career wise. For the first time, instead of me setting a goal on a specific job, on a specific position, on a specific salary, right? I even went there. I set my intentions on what I wanted that experience to feel like, my work experience. So, for example, I aspired to have autonomy and flexibility, right? Because I was thinking about my future family. I was thinking about the full experience. I was thinking about prioritizing what was important to me, right? That future family, those kids, that partner. That was important to me. And so when I was thinking in context of things that I was going to pursue, it was rooted in something that had value to me, right? So I challenge you to think in terms of what does it mean to be happy, but more importantly, also, what does it feel like? What does it look like? Another thing that I wanted to have is I wanted to travel. I wanted to see the world. I didn't want to be in a space and place that was stagnant, right? Or static. And with that intention, there was a manifestation of that exact position that embodied all of those attributes of what it felt like. But I allowed myself to be open to the universe to manifest it in a way that maybe I wasn't even thinking about. If I was very specific on, it had to look like this, it had to look like that. I wanted you to think about that. Julius, we had a couple of comments. Let's take some of those comments there. I love that question. What does it really mean to be happy? Yes, that hit me, right? And I don't think we do enough of that. What does it look like to be a happy American? What a deep question. I don't think we ask ourselves, wow, Ken, we like right here, brother. We don't ask ourselves that question enough. We're made to believe that amassing things, the bigger the better, makes us happy. But when we finally get those things, we're looking to one up ourselves on what we can do next. And yes, again, that is something that in the context of buying vehicles, which is something I love cars, nothing was ever good enough. And the thing that I thought was going to fulfill me by getting that next car really did not fulfill that void. The concept of fulfilling the need of the inner child is coming up more and more. And I'm realizing that so much of who I am is me trying to make the childhood self validated. Wow. So powerful. So powerful. Julius, was there anything else that we had? I would ask, what are the ways to create better goals, right, with intention? And I think, again, Julius, and thank you for that question. It's one of those things that I want us to start with the question of what does it mean to be happy? And I would challenge us to think about what does it feel like? What does it look like? What is the experience of happiness? Right? Not the substantive thing, right? Not the material thing that we usually think of in context. I want us to keep moving because another friend of the show, actually a family member of this show, is Nicholas Gaines. And when I was preparing for the show, I was perusing through his feed, and he always has a lot of good stuff. And he asked another question that I thought was really, really good. And it says, what or whose voice are you trying to silence through your accomplishments? And let's go to our next video segment to open that up a little bit. No, you and another person who's been on the show, Nicholas Gaines, were in the similar vein on questions that you were posing for us to contemplate as we go into this new year. And I love this one from Nick. He says, what and whose voice are you trying to silence through your accomplishments? What and whose voice are you trying to silence through your accomplishments?
Hmm.
And man, that one really hit home for me as well, because I know that my mother died 19 years ago. And my partner recently asked me, hey, what was your grieving process? He was like, do you feel like you actually were able to grieve? Because I told him that my way of moving through pain was to get busy, to go into action, to set another goal, and to reach that goal, because that was going to be my outward declaration to everybody. I'm okay. See, look, I just bought this house. Look, I just bought another house. Look at it. And I was not able to see the need to, one, honor that inner child's needs, right? This child who's lost their mother and who feels this major void. But then also this piece on whose voice am I trying to silence through my accomplishments? Actually, a lot of times it was my own inner voice, right?
Mhm.
Right. Um, and so do you have any comments about that? I saw how that question kind of landed on you.
Oh, I love that question because I had
Yeah.
never thought about it in that context. But I do think it's kind of like one and the same, right? It's very similar to my question in the sense that I think so often our inner child's like, pay attention to me. I'm here. Listen, right? But we're not attuned to it. And so instead we're like, I'm gonna do all these things and I'm gonna be big and bad and popping. So that and we're in hopes that this inner child will be silenced.
Yeah.
Right. So the first thing that actually came to my mind when you said that, I had this like flashback of me when I was like in like third grade. I know this is a corny example,
Oh,
but
bring it.
I was in I was in third grade and I remember, when you had to read aloud, and you'd be like,
Ah,
oh,
yes, yes,
yeah,
yes.
and you'd be like, you like counting the paragraph. Okay, what's my sentence? So I
This one's gonna be mine right here. Let me.
so I was like counting all of them. I was like counting the people in the class, counting the sentences. I was like, okay, I'm prepared. I got this. Yo, I read the sentence incorrectly. And that, in addition to being like receiving comments on the way I spoke, even within my own home, I internalized this message about how I speak. and I don't think it's aligned with reality. But in my mind, I'm so insecure about my like how eloquent I am or how I come across or even the tone of
Mm,
my voice. And so I think I overcompensate in a lot of ways
mm.
because I have that insecurity and that little girl in me who's like, don't mess up, don't do it, don't do it, don't do it, right?
Wow.
And so like I think some of my accomplishments are because I'm silencing that little girl in me. It's like I want to prove to her, no, you are smart. But really she just like needs to be seen and probably held a little bit.
Yeah. Now, thank you for sharing that. Like, there's so many of us that can go back to those third grade moments or those, fifth grade moments or wherever that point in time in our childhood where we've heard something externally, right? And we talked about this. I talk about this a lot on this show where I learned how to perform very
Mhm,
early on. I learned how to perform masculinity
mhm,
because I was told that any kind of natural mannerism that I may displayed at a certain time, as soon as I heard, "Oh, that's gay. Don't do that. Boys don't do that." Whatever, I I knew right away. Like, wait a minute. Okay, something's wrong with what I did, or with who I am, or how I exist in this world, and that instantaneously made me hyper vigilant and aware of and cognizant of all of my actions. And so I talk about this performance that carried on into my adult life. And it's just only in the recent years, through the work, right? Through the silencing of those external voices that turned into internal dialogue or monologue, right?
mhm,
That I've been able to release that and not feel like now I have to prove something. I think at times a lot of what we are doing in terms of goal setting is trying to prove something.
mhm.
And I know that was in some instances still is something that I struggle with. No matter what, how many accomplishments you may do, it's never enough because you're still trying to prove something. Yeah, that one there really hits home and resonates, and in trying to prove something and having the validation, which actually is going to be our show topic for the next 2 weeks. So I'm going to do a plug here for you to come back to the Naked Truth Experience because we're going to be talking about validation specifically in men. So, brothers, I need you to be ready for this conversation, and sisters, I need you to tune in or tell another man about it. But what are we trying to prove? I'm not sure if we have any reactions or comments. What voice am I trying to silence through these accomplishments? Yeah, the question I'm taking into my next therapy session. It's such a heavy question. Prompts me to think of all the things that I've done in career and relationship, and I'm doing things to please people and not to make me happy. My happiness cannot be connected to someone else's thoughts about what it is that I do. My happiness is predicated on the work I am doing to be free within myself. You are doing this for you. I think that is one of the biggest things that I've taken away when it comes to the things that we are trying to accomplish. Make sure that you are doing this for you and your edification, your benefit, not to please other people. Yes, we can't heal what we won't feel. And that's one of the hardest things sometimes is to allow yourself to feel it because it don't feel good. How about that? It's okay not to be okay. And when we embrace the grieving process, we open ourselves to healing. Once again, yes, feel it. One more. That's extremely transparent. I think a lot of us get busy to cover up things that are happening or not happening in life. And so many of us grew up in spaces where we could not talk about feelings, yet had to keep going. So the inner child says, Mom and Dad said to keep moving. And you do. We are this culture of that perpetuates this, if you ain't hustling, if you ain't grinding, then you're not worthy. And so I think those things start to connect and intersect when it's like we're not able to deal with our emotions, or we don't have environments, as you stated, Julius, or we're not encouraged to deal with them. But then you layer that on top of this grind culture, which tells us that your worth is based on what you can produce and how quickly you produce it. And that, once again, is also one of the reasons why we may not take time to ask ourselves some of these crucial questions about why we are setting the goals that we're setting. Listen, I want to go into our wrap up with Suzy. So let's drop into the last segment. Suzy, I absolutely love you, and I am so grateful that we've had this time in this conversation on over these two episodes here. If you were to just leave the people with something around how to step into this new year and what suggestions you would give. Again, I want you all to go to wellness_dialogues because there are prompts there that Suzy talks about for 2021 that I suggest, and there are also some diary questions for how you were going to exit 2020. Right? It's never too late. You can still listen. We can still go back and really kind of bring some closure to that. But Suzy, just if you could give our folks just some closing on how you'd like to see folks transition into their new year.
Mhm. Well, this is a time, Monroe. I'm like, how can
Uh-huh.
I just say one thing? But I think what the first thing that comes to my mind, which I'm actually surprised by, but I would ask folks, how do you exert your energy?
Mm,
Because I think oftentimes we exert energy on looking outwardly in hopes of receiving energy from other people, right? So it's like almost like we give energy to receive energy. And I think
mm,
that if we didn't have to look outward and we could look inward, we would save so much energy and we could like kind of recycle our own energy and kind of grow it in like in an exponential way. But instead we're exerting, exerting, exerting. And then we're left so depleted and we're like, damn, why didn't anyone fill my cup? Right. And then we get mad at people and we are we're just like can be all grumpy because we're looking outward. So really, how do you spend your energy and how can you direct the energy inward?
I love that. I love that. How do you exert your energy? And that whole thing where you said it's like you look around and you're like now you're angry. And I've been that person, because you're just like, but I gave and I did this and I did that and I did this. And again, I have to say it goes back to I was listening to Oprah's. She did something around intention a while ago, and she talks about intention being the cornerstone of everything that she does. But she was referring to her disease to please and how doing things for people a lot of times wasn't necessarily intrinsically motivated because that's what she really wanted, how she wanted to spend her time. She felt like it was in some way able to serve her and all that other kind of stuff. But it was more so because I don't want somebody to think ill of me, or I don't want people to have this perception that I'm not kind, or I'm a bitch, in what she was saying, or I'm mean or whatever. Or when it's my time to ask for something or need support, they won't be there because I wasn't there. And I when she was saying that, I could really understand about how much unnecessary energy we've exerted in a lot of these places. And it did not necessarily come from the intention of because that's where we wanted to be,
I have something to say to that. I
really.
think our number one intention, which we will not admit, but our number one intention is really just being loved. And actually, I'll add on to that and feeling worthy, right? And so if we like just remember that, then we can think or we can be curious around like why we're doing these things, right? So why is Oprah people pleasing? Probably to be loved, to feel worthy of
Mm,
their company, right? So that is our intention, is to be
yeah,
loved. And so what I think we need to be curious around is how do we fulfill that intention,
mm,
right? Are we doing it in ways that energize us, that feel sustainable, right? That are like flowing through us? Are we doing it in ways that feel like inauthentic or like they're taking energy from people, right? So I guess I'll add that to my other
yeah,
question. Right?
no,
How do you
I
fulfill
love
your love?
yeah, I love that. Well, I need to say to you that every time I am in your presence or out of your presence, I feel loved by you. And I am very grateful for that. I'm very grateful for the relationship that we formed in grad school that has transcended that time. You are an incredible human being, as I've stated before, and I am so honored to have you in my life. And I want to say to you, Happy New Year. And I'm so excited for your success thus far and the success that is yet to come because you are a shining star. So thank you, Suzy, for being here. Love you.
Thank you for having me. It's so nice to see you and to feel you.
I love it. I love it. I love it. Thank you, Suzy, so much for being with us for these last 2 weeks. And I want to thank all of you who have tuned in. We have a couple of comments I want to take, and then I'm going to give a couple closing remarks, and that'll be it for tonight. My friend used to tell me I am good at being busy, but not good at being productive. Ah, Ken, you are not the only one, right? We can look good being busy, but like what's actually getting done? Like, and even that word productivity, we might need to dig into that too. Like, who determines what productivity is? But we definitely know what it means to be busy. I saw another comment pop in there. Yes, working to make sure people perceive you as certain things or certain ways lead me to burnout. Yes, at my first company out of college, right when I was about to hit 10-year burnout hit, I resigned and learned that it was not the way. I was not energized, just always pleasing without thinking about refilling my cup. This is what I love about these shows because it allows us to reflect and to connect the dots, right? The three common themes that Oprah talks about, she noticed from interviewing thousands of people. Everyone wants to know, do you see me? Do you hear me? And did what I say mean anything to you? Do you love me? Am I worthy? Do I have value? Right? Yeah. Listen, you all, I want to just leave a couple of things with you for tonight. As we are talking about goal getters, what's the real reason? There's just a few things that I would encourage you to do as you begin to set goals or continue to set goals, whether it be for the 2021 year or some specific season in your life. I want you to consider these things. First of all, take time to be with yourself. Take time to be with yourself. One of the things sometimes it's so hard to just silence the noise and just to take a few moments to be with ourselves, but it is one of the most valuable things that we can do. And if we begin to do it on a consistent basis, we will get to know ourselves even more. Talk to the inner child and find out what that inner child needs. Be with yourself, talk to the inner child and find out what that inner child needs. Ask yourself, what does it really mean to be happy? And as I stated, how does that feel? What does it look like? What is the experience? What's the experience? Then I want you to be clear about what you deem valuable. What do you find valuable? Go deep. Don't stay surface. But what is really valuable? And then lastly, I want you to be honest. Be honest with yourself. I want to thank each and every person who is here tonight and those who will watch this on the replay. And I want to thank you for hopefully taking something from this and then adding that to your life. And I'm hoping that it will enrich your life in some way, form, or fashion. Please share it. Please make sure that you like, share, and subscribe. It is the only way that the Naked Truth Experience will continue to expand and to grow. And then for all of you who are interested, please jump into the Naked Truth Experience Facebook group. I want to encourage you to please return next week when we will have another special guest with me with the Naked Truth Experience with Monroe. And we'll be talking about the importance of validation, right? And understanding all things validation when it comes to men. You don't want to miss that. I want to thank my producer, Julius. Oh, yes. And he reminded me that tomorrow morning, join me on Instagram, he_smiles at 11 a.m. Eastern for our 10-minute talk back. As always, I want to once again thank Julius, and I want to thank you. Have a wonderful night.